Don't look behind you. Welcome to Disailer.
I found a valley in the High Sierra that isn't on any map. Something is wrong with the acoustics there. I'm writing this from a Motel 6 in Bishop, California. I've been here for 3 days. I haven't showered. I haven't called my parents. I definitely haven't called the police because I know exactly how crazy I'm going to sound. But I need to get this down while the details are still sharp, before the whiskey I'm drinking blurs the edges of what happened up there. I've been hiking the Sierra Nevada for 15 years. I know the John Muir Trail, the High Sierra route, and the obscure scrambles around the Evolution Basin like the back of my hand. I'm not a tourist in sneakers carrying a single bottle of Dasani. I'm gear-obsessed, ultralight-focused, and overly cautious. That's why this hurts so much. We did everything right. My hiking partner was Sam. We'd been best friends since college. Sam was the kind of guy who could start a fire in a rainstorm and navigate by stars. We planned a 7-day off-trail loop starting near South Lake, pushing deep into the backcountry over some unnamed passes to test our navigation skills. The first 2 days were grueling but glorious. The Sierras have a way of making you feel small, but in a good way, like you're a guest in a cathedral of granite. By the afternoon of day 3, we were traversing a ridgeline at about 11,500 feet. We were aiming for a saddle that looked passable on our topo maps, a shortcut that would drop us into a hanging valley where we planned to camp. We crested the ridge around 4 p.m. The sun was dipping, casting those long, amber shadows that make the mountains look like they're breathing. "Check that out," Sam said, pointing his trekking pole downward. Below us wasn't the shallow bowl indicated on the USGS quad. It was a deep, narrow fissure, almost like a knife wound in the earth. At the bottom, maybe 2,000 feet down, lay a lake. From that height, alpine lakes usually look turquoise or sapphire blue. This water was black. Not muddy, just absolutely, perfectly light-absorbent black. It looked like a hole in the world. Surrounding it was a patch of lush, violent green vegetation that seemed out of place among the gray scree. "That's not on the Garmin," I said, checking my GPS. The device showed us standing on a gentle slope, not the edge of a precipice. "Glacial retreat?" Sam suggested. "Maybe the maps are outdated. If that lake is new, we might be the first people to camp there in, well, ever." The allure of first is a dangerous drug for hikers. We scanned the descent. It was steep, mostly Class 3 scrambling with some loose rock, but doable. We decided to drop in, camp by the black water, and climb out the other side in the morning. The weirdness started about halfway down. Usually, as you descend into a valley, the wind picks up or changes direction. Here, the wind just died. It was abrupt. 1 second, the wind was whipping my windbreaker. The next, total stillness. Then the sound went. The Sierras are quiet, but never silent. There's always the sound of wind in the scrub pine, the distant trickle of meltwater, the chirping of pikas, the crunch of your own boots. But as we entered the shadow of the valley walls, the silence became heavy. It felt pressurized, like the air in an airplane cabin before your ears pop. "My ears feel weird," Sam whispered. I jumped. His whisper sounded like he had shouted it directly into my brain. The acoustics were impossible. The granite walls were too far away to create that kind of immediate amplification, yet his voice had zero decay. It was crisp, loud, and totally lacking in reverb. "Yeah," I said, my own voice startling me. "It's like a recording studio down here. Dead air." We reached the valley floor an hour before sunset. The temperature dropped 20 degrees the second we hit the vegetation. The grass wasn't just green, it was thick, wet, and rubbery. It didn't crunch under our boots, it squished. We set up our tent about 50 yards from the Black Lake. Up close, the water was unnerving. It was perfectly still. No ripples, no bugs skating on the surface. I walked to the edge to fill our gravity filter. I dipped my hand in. The water was freezing, colder than snow melt should be in August. But when I pulled my hand out, the water didn't drip off. It clung to my skin like a thin oil. I shook my hand violently to get it off, wiping the residue on my pants. "Don't drink that," I told Sam. "We'll use the snow patch we passed on the way down."
We ate our freeze-dried stroganoff in near silence. The oppressive quiet was making us both edgy. Every movement we made, the zip of a jacket, the clink of a spoon, was jarringly loud. Around 9 p.m., we were sitting on a flat rock, watching the stars come out. The sky was a narrow strip between the towering canyon walls. "Do you hear that?" Sam asked. I strained my ears. "Hear what?" "That hum." I listened. At first, nothing. Then I felt it more than heard it, a low-frequency vibration right at the base of my skull. It sounded like a massive electrical transformer humming miles underground. Geological, I guessed. Water moving underground? Maybe, Sam said. He looked pale in the light of his headlamp. It's in a specific key. F sharp, I think. Sam was a musician back home. It's creating a tritone with the wind. Wait, there is no wind. We decided to turn in. I crawled into my sleeping bag, burying my head in my puffy jacket to muffle the silence, which is a sentence that makes no sense unless you've been there. I woke up at 2:13 a.m. I didn't wake up because I had to pee. I woke up because Sam was sitting bolt upright next to me. "Sam," I hissed. He didn't move. "Sam, what's wrong?" He slowly turned his head. In the dim moonlight filtering through the tent fabric, his eyes looked wide, blown out. "The acoustics are perfectly dialed in," he whispered. "Who?" "The walls. Listen." I listened. The low hum was louder now, but layered over it was something else. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Footsteps outside the tent. Heavy, rhythmic steps on the granite gravel. My hand went to the bear spray. "Bear?" I mouthed. Sam shook his head. "Too rhythmic, bipedal." The footsteps circled the tent. Crunch, crunch, crunch. They stopped right at the head of the tent, inches from my face, separated only by thin nylon. I held my breath, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Then a sound came from outside that made my blood turn to ice. "My ears feel weird." It was Sam's voice. Not an impression. It was exactly Sam's voice, perfect in timbre and cadence, identical to when he had whispered it on the descent. Then, immediately after, "Yeah, it's like a recording studio down here. Dead air." My voice. It was repeating our conversation from earlier. I looked at Sam. He had a terrifying, slack-jawed smile on his face. "High fidelity, lossless playback," he murmured. "Sam, shut up," I whispered, terrified. The thing outside tapped on the tent fabric. Tap, tap, tap. Then it spoke again, but this time it wasn't a replay. It was a remix. "Sam, dead air, weird, ears, studio, dead, dead, dead." It was chopping our words, rearranging them. The voice shifted pitch, sliding from my deep baritone up to a screeching falsetto that sounded like tearing metal. I ripped the zipper of the tent open and blasted the bear spray into the darkness, screaming at the top of my lungs. The beam of my headlamp cut through the night. Nothing. There was absolutely nothing there. No bear, no person, no footprints in the soft earth around the tent, just the Black Lake and the towering canyons. "Pack up," I ordered, my voice shaking. "We're leaving, now." Headlamps on. We climb out in the dark. Sam didn't move. He was still sitting in his sleeping bag, rocking slightly back and forth. Sam, we have to go! I grabbed his shoulder. He flinched, looking at me with total confusion. Why? The concert is just starting. There is no concert, man. Something is out there. It's not out there, Mark. He used my name for the first time. It's the reflection. The echo has to go somewhere. If it doesn't bounce back, it stays. It accumulates. This valley, it's full of millions of years of sounds that never escaped. He was losing it. Altitude sickness? Psychosis? I didn't care. I packed his bag, shoved his boots onto his feet, and physically dragged him out of the tent. We left the tent standing. I didn't care about the $400 Big Agnes. I just wanted out.
We started the ascent. It was a nightmare. Climbing loose Class 3 rock in the dark is suicide, but staying in that valley felt like a fate worse than death. The higher we got, the louder the noise became. It wasn't just a footsteps anymore. As we scrambled up the scree, the valley below began to purge. I heard the sound of rock falls that must have happened centuries ago. I heard the shriek of a mountain lion. I heard thunder. But worst of all, I heard people. I heard snippets of conversations in languages I didn't recognize. I heard a woman laughing, a sound that looped and distorted until it sounded like sobbing. I heard a man screaming in agony, the wet crunch of bones breaking, a fall that might have happened in 1950 or 1850. "It's a library," Sam yelled over the cacophony. He wasn't climbing, he was standing on a narrow ledge, staring down into the black abyss. "Mark, listen! That's a Paiute hunting song. That's a rock slide from the Pleistocene." "Sam, give me your hand." I reached down from the ledge above him. "We're almost to the ridge." "I can't leave," Sam said, tears streaming down his face. "I haven't heard my song yet. It's gonna play me next." "Sam, don't you dare!" The hum spiked. It became a physical force, vibrating the fillings in my teeth, blurring my vision. The loose rocks on the slope started to dance, skittering downhill like insects. Then the valley played the sound I had been dreading. It was the sound of us scrambling up the rocks. It was the sound of my heavy breathing. And then it was the sound of Sam screaming. But Sam wasn't screaming yet. The valley was playing a future echo. "Ah! Mark! Help!" The recording of Sam's scream tore through the air, amplified to a deafening roar. Sam looked up at me, his eyes lucid for 1 second. "That's it, Mark. That's the take." He stepped back. He didn't stumble. He didn't slip. He stepped back off the ledge into the void. I watched him fall. He didn't scream. The valley had already done it for him. He hit the slope below, tumbled and slid down into the darkness, toward the black water. I screamed his name. "Sam! Sam! 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 S-A-M." The echo mocked me instantly. I scrambled the last 50 feet with the adrenaline of a dying animal. I crested the ridge and literally rolled on to the other side, down onto the safe western slope. The moment my body crossed the ridgeline, the sound cut. Instantly. No hum, no screams, just the gentle, cold wind of the high Sierra and the distant rustle of normal, sane trees. I lay there until sunrise, shivering, waiting for Sam to climb over the edge. He never did. I hiked out alone. It took me 2 days. I didn't stop to sleep. I barely stopped to drink. Every time I passed a large rock formation, I flinched, expecting it to speak to me. I went to the ranger station in Bishop. I told them we got separated near the evolution basin. I told them he fell. I didn't tell them about the Black Lake or the voices. I gave them the coordinates of where we should have been, not where we were.
I knew that if I sent them to that valley, they wouldn't come back either. Or maybe they'd find nothing. Maybe the valley moves. They launched a search. A helicopter swept the area. They found nothing. No tent, no body. They called off the search yesterday. Tragic backcountry accident. But here's why I'm posting this. I'm in my motel room. It's 3 a.m. The AC unit is humming. For the last hour, the hum of the AC has been changing. It's shifting pitch. It's finding a harmony. And 5 minutes ago, distinctly, buried in the rattle of the fan, I heard it. It's a library, Mark. It followed me. Or maybe I never made it out of the valley. Maybe this, the motel, the whiskey, this Reddit post, is just the hallucination my brain is cooking up while I starve to death next to the black water. If you hike the Sierras, stay on the trail. If you see a valley that isn't on the map, don't go down. And if the silence feels heavy, if the air feels dead, run. Run before it starts to record you. Because I don't think it ever hits stop.
We found the hidden traverse in the Swiss Alps. It wasn't on any map, and now I know why. Part 1. I am typing this with my left hand. My right hand is currently heavily bandaged, black at the fingertips, and if the doctors are right, will be gone by tomorrow morning. They keep telling me I'm lucky. They tell me that surviving 3 nights exposed on the Monte Rosa Massif in January is a miracle. But they don't know I wasn't alone, and they don't know that I didn't survive. Not really. I'm an alpinist. I don't say that to brag. I say it so you understand that I know the difference between altitude sickness, hypothermia, and what happened up there. I've summited Denali. I've done the north face of the Eiger. I know how the brain rots when it's starved of oxygen. I know how the wind can sound like screaming. This wasn't the wind. There were 4 of us, me, Mark, Elias, Sarah, and our guide, a visibly weathered local named Davide, who smoked hand-rolled cigarettes that smelled like burning pine needles. We weren't looking for fame. We were looking for a ghost route, a theoretical traverse connecting 2 subsidiary peaks near the border of Switzerland and Italy. It had appeared in the diary of a British climber who vanished in 1948, and we were arrogant enough to think we could find what he couldn't. Day 1 was textbook. The sky was that piercing, impossible blue you only get above 4,000 meters. The snow was hard-packed, the crampons biting with a satisfying thunk-crunch rhythm that usually puts me in a meditative state. Things went wrong on the afternoon of the second day. We were navigating a knife-edge ridge when the weather turned. It wasn't gradual. In the Alps, storms don't approach, they materialize. 1 minute, visibility was 50 miles. The next, I couldn't see Elias, who was roped 5 meters ahead of me. The temperature plummeted from a manageable -10 degrees Celsius to -30 degrees Celsius in the span of an hour. "We need to dig in," Davide yelled over the roar of the wind. His voice sounded thin, swallowed by the gale. We couldn't dig in. We were on a ridge with a sheer drop on both sides. We had to descend. Davide spotted a shadow in the whiteout, a dark gash in the rock face about 50 meters down. It looked like a chimney, a vertical crack that might offer shelter. We rappelled down, fighting the gusts that tried to smash us against the granite. We squeezed into the fissure. It widened as it went back, opening into a small cavern roughly the size of a master bedroom. It was dry, out of the wind, and surprisingly deep. We set up our bivouac sacks. We melted snow for tea. The adrenaline wore off, replaced by the heavy, dull exhaustion of high-altitude exertion. I was the first to notice the sound. It was around 2 a.m. The outside storm was still raging, but underneath the wind there was a hum a low-frequency vibration that I didn't hear with my ears so much as feel in my teeth. Thrum, thrum. Davide was awake, sitting cross-legged near the entrance. "It is the digestion," he said, staring into the dark. He didn't elaborate. Morning brought no light. The storm had buried the entrance. We dug for hours, but for every foot of snow we cleared, another avalanche from above seemed to fill it back in. By noon, the mood shifted from concern to dread. We were sealed in. "We should explore the back," Elias suggested. "Maybe there's another way out." Davide protested, but the air coming from the back was warm, too warm. We clicked on our headlamps and moved deeper. The cave narrowed, then opened into a massive gallery. My beam couldn't hit the ceiling, and the walls, they weren't granite. They were black, slick, and slightly translucent. They felt like frozen meat. "Guys," Elias called out, "you need to see this." We walked over. Elias was standing over a pile of gear, old gear. There were hemp ropes, rusted pitons, and a canvas rucksack that had rotted away. "Look at the boots," Elias said. I shone my light on the leather boots. They were perfectly preserved, and inside them were feet. Just feet, severed cleanly at the ankle. No blood, no decay, just pale frozen flesh. I looked around the pile and found a journal encased in a block of clear ice. I smashed the ice and pulled the book out. I flipped to the last entry. It wasn't a date. It was just one sentence, scrawled over and over again, filling the entire page until the paper tore. "It is not a mountain. It is not a mountain. It is not a mountain."
Put it back, Davide hissed. He was shaking. "We leave, now. We dig until our hands break." We turned to go back to the bivouac site, but the path was gone. I don't mean we got lost. I mean the geology had changed. Where there had been a narrow tunnel, there was now a smooth, solid wall of that black, meat-like stone. This isn't possible," Sarah said, hyperventilating. "We just came from here." "The throat swallowed," Davide whispered. He dropped to his knees and started praying in Italian. "Shut up!" I yelled, panic rising in my chest like bile. "Sarah, check the GPS." No signal, obviously. "The compass." She looked at her wrist, spinning. We were sealed in, and the temperature was rising. It was now comfortably warm, maybe 10 degrees centigrade. That was the most terrifying part. In the death zone, warmth means death. We walked. We had no choice. The cave system seemed to go on forever, spiraling downward. The acoustics were wrong. When I stepped, the sound of my boot crunching on the grit didn't echo. It was absorbed instantly. Hours passed, or maybe days. My watch had stopped. Elias was the first to break. We had stopped to rest, and he was staring at a formation in the wall. "That looks like a face," he mumbled. "It looks like my face." I shone my light where he was pointing. Embedded in the semi-translucent black wall, deep beneath the surface, was a milky white shape. It was a face. Eyes closed, mouth open in a silent scream. It was Elias. "How?" Elias whispered, reaching out to touch the wall. "Don't touch it!" I screamed. Too late. His finger brushed the black surface. The wall rippled like a pond. The ripple shot out from his finger, expanding outward. And then Elias screamed. He didn't scream because of pain. He screamed because his hand was gone. Not severed, merged. His hand had sunk into the wall, and the rock had solidified instantly around it. "Help me! Pull me!" We pulled. Elias howled. The wall was pulling back. It wasn't suction, it was magnetism. The flesh of his arm was stretching, the skin turning white, then translucent. "Cut it!" Elias shrieked. "Cut it off!" I looked at his arm. It was swallowed up to the elbow now. The black substance was creeping up his bicep like a living sludge. I didn't have a bone saw. I had an ice axe. "Do it, Mark! Do it!" I swung. Elias fell backward, clutching a stump that pumped bright red blood onto the black floor. Sarah went into medic mode, applying a tourniquet. I looked at the wall. Elias's arm was inside it, floating. And the hand? The hand was moving. It was flexing. It gave a thumbs up. I threw up. We had to move. The smell of blood had changed the atmosphere. The hum, that low vibration, had spiked into a screeching tinnitus. The cave knew we were hurt. We carried Elias. He was delirious, muttering about the white room and the teeth. Davide took point. He seemed to know where he was going now, though he wouldn't say how. We go down to go out, he kept muttering.
We descended for what felt like an eternity. The heat became oppressive. We stripped off our parkas. We were sweating. In the Alps, in January. Then we found the Hall of Echoes. It was a cavern so vast our light didn't hit the walls. The floor was covered in what looked like snow, but when we stepped on it, it crunched like dry bone, because it was bone. Millions of tiny fragments, birds, ibex, wolves, and people. In the center of the cavern there was a light, a pale blue luminescence. It was a rift, a tear in the fabric of the dark. Through it I could see the night sky, stars. "The exit!" Elias croaked. We ran, we scrambled over the mounds of crushed bone. Davide stopped. He turned to us. His face was slack. "Only one," he said. "The balance must be kept. 1 leaves, 3 stay." "Davide, let's go!" I grabbed his shoulder. He felt impossibly cold. He smiled. "I am already home." Davide opened his mouth, and a swarm of white moths flew out. He collapsed, but his body didn't hit the ground. It shattered. He broke apart like a statue made of ice, crumbling into a pile of shards on the bone floor. Sarah screamed. "Run!" I yelled. We bolted for the rift. The hum was deafening. We were 10 meters away when something grabbed my ankle. I fell. I rolled over. It was Elias. He wasn't on my shoulder anymore. He was on the ground, his remaining hand clamped around my ankle. His eyes were pure white. "You can't leave," he said. His voice sounded like grinding stones. "We need your heat." He began to pull himself up my leg. Sarah hesitated at the rift. That hesitation doomed her. A tendril of the black wall shot out and wrapped around her waist. She was yanked backward into the darkness. A wet crunch, and then silence. It was just me and the thing that used to be Elias. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the flare gun. I pressed the barrel against his chest. "Burn," I said. I pulled the trigger. The magnesium flare ignited with a blinding white light. Elias shrieked, letting go. I kicked him off and dove through the rift just as it snapped shut. I hit snow. Cold, biting, beautiful snow. They found me 2 days later. I was in the hospital in Zermatt, 3 weeks. When the police interviewed me, I told them everything. I gave them the names: Elias Thorne, Sarah Jenkins, Davide Rossi. The police officer looked at me with pity. "Sir," he said, "we checked the records. There was no expedition. You checked in alone. The rental car had only your gear." I called Elias's wife. The number didn't exist. Sarah's university profile was a 404 error. Davide never existed. I thought I had gone crazy, but yesterday the doctor came in with my x-rays. "Mark," he said, "you have a foreign object lodged in your lower left lobe." He put the film up on the light box. It wasn't a tumor. It was a tooth, a human molar. And etched on the side of the tooth, visible only because of the high-contrast imaging, was a tiny, intricate carving of a climber hanging from a rope. I touched my chest. I could feel it there, deep inside me, a little piece of cold that never warms up. My left arm is starting to feel heavy, dense,
And when I look in the mirror for a split second, my reflection doesn't blink when I do. I think I brought the mountain down with me. I think I'm the new map. If you are climbing in the Pennine Alps and you see a chimney that isn't on the GPS, don't go in. And if you hear a hum, run. Because I can hear it again. It's coming from my own chest. Thrum.
I was part of an off-the-books survey team on Mount Rainier. We found a tunnel that breathes. I'm writing this from a motel room in Tacoma. I've been staring at the mountain through the window for 3 hours. The curtains are drawn, but I can still feel it out there. A massive white shadow looming over the horizon, waiting. I used to look at Mount Rainier and see a challenge, a beautiful, jagged giant of rock and ice. Now, I only see a lid keeping something down that should never have been woken up. If you check the news, you'll see a report about a climbing accident involving 3 experienced mountaineers. They'll say it was an avalanche or maybe a serac collapse near the Liberty Cap. They'll list 2 dead, 1 survivor. I'm the survivor. And I'm telling you right now, the mountain didn't fall on us. We fell into the mountain. It started 3 weeks ago. I'm a freelance guide, usually leading tech bros and tourists up the Disappointment Cleaver route. It pays the bills, but it's boring. So when an old contact, a geologist named Sarah, reached out with a private contract, I listened. Sarah was brilliant, obsessed with volcanic hydrology. She had a theory that Rainier's fumarole systems, the steam vents that melt out ice caves near the summit, were far more interconnected than the USGS maps showed. She believed there was a master vent, a central artery deep beneath the Russell Cliff that had opened up due to recent seismic shifts. "I need a mule and a navigator, Mark," she'd told me over coffee, "and I need someone who can keep their mouth shut. We don't have a permit for this specific sector." The third member of our team was David, a quiet guy who looked like he was carved out of granite. Ex-SAR, search and rescue, carrying enough medical gear to run a field hospital. The money was good, too good. That should have been my first red flag. We approached from the north, avoiding the popular camps. The first 2 days were grueling but standard. It was on the 3rd night, camped on a ridge near the Liberty Cap, that things started to feel off. I was melting snow for water, the hiss of the MSR stove the only sound in the dead silence. David was checking the ropes. Sarah was staring at her tablet, frowning at thermal imaging data. "Do you hear that?" David asked, pausing with a coil of rope in his hand. I strained my ears. "Wind?" "No," said David. "It's too rhythmic." I listened harder. It wasn't a sound exactly. It was a pressure, a low-frequency thrum that vibrated in the fillings of my teeth and the hollows of my chest. Thump, thump, thump. Slow, massive, like the heartbeat of a whale heard from miles underwater. "Seismic activity," Sarah said, though she didn't look up. "Magma movement deep in the chamber. It's normal for an active stratovolcano." "That doesn't feel like geology," muttered David. "Whatever it is," Sarah said, turning the screen towards us, "it's heating up the ice right where I said it would be. Look." The thermal image showed a blotch of angry red amidst the cool blues of the glacier, about 1,000 feet above us, a heat signature. We moved at first light. The ascent to the Anomaly was technical. The higher we got, the stronger the smell became. Usually, volcanic vents smell like sulfur. This didn't. It smelled like copper and ozone, like an old battery that had burst, mixed with the metallic tang of dried blood. We crested a ridge of seracs, and there it was. It was a hole in the side of the glacier, about 10 feet wide, perfectly circular. The ice around the rim wasn't jagged. It was smooth, rounded, almost polished. And it was pulsing. Every 10 seconds or so, a puff of warm air would exhale from the hole, distorting the light, followed by a sucking intake that pulled snow crystals into the dark. "It's breathing," David said, his voice muffled by the mask. "It's pressure equalization," Sarah corrected, though her voice wavered. "Let's get the sensors." We anchored off near the entrance. The plan was to lower a sensor array, map the interior, and leave. But when Sarah lowered the cable, the winch spun freely. 50 meters, 100 meters. "It's bottomless," I said.
"It can't be," Sarah snapped. "The radar indicates a floor at 200 feet. She checked the winch. "I'm going down." "Absolutely not," I said. "That wasn't the deal." "The deal is whatever I say it is, Mark. I'm paying you double." She looked at me, her eyes manic behind her goggles. "This is the discovery of the century. If you won't lower me, David will." David looked at me, then at the hole. "I'll go first," he said. "Safety check." I hated it. I hated every second of it. But we set up a Z-pulley system, and David backed over the edge. "Radio check," I said. "Loud and clear," David's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Dropping now. Ice is weird here, Mark. It's soft, slushy. Temperature? 80 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a sauna down here." He descended for 5 minutes. Then the static started. "Mark, the walls." "Say again, David, you're breaking up." "The walls, they aren't ice anymore. It's rock, but it's wet. It's slick. And the smell. Jesus, the smell is getting through the filter." "David, abort," I said. "Come back up." "Wait," he whispered. "I see something. There's a chamber. It opens up. It's beautiful." "David, pull up." "I'm unclipping," he said. "Don't you fucking dare unclip," I screamed. "I have to see. There are veins, gold veins in the rock. No, not gold. They're moving." Then a sound came over the radio. It wasn't the low thrum anymore. It was a wet, squelching noise, like a boot stuck in deep mud pulled free. "David?" Silence. "David!" Sarah was already clipping into the second line. "I'm going after him." "No!" I grabbed her harness. "We pull him up. We don't go down." "He's not responding. He could have passed out from the fumes." She shoved me back with surprising strength. "Belay me." I didn't have a choice. If I let her go without a rope, she'd die. If I fought her, we wasted time. I locked her onto the line, and she vanished into the steam. I was alone on the surface. The wind had died. The silence was absolute, except for that rhythmic thump, thump, thump from the earth. 10 minutes passed. "Sarah?" I radioed. "I found him," she whispered. Her voice was trembling so hard it distorted the transmission. "Is he okay? Is he conscious?" "Mark," she said, he's fused." "What?" "He's fused to the wall. He took his gloves off. He touched it. His hands, the rock absorbed them. It's eating him, Mark. It's digesting him." I felt bile rise in my throat. "Cut him loose. We have to get you out." "But I can't," she sobbed. "He's still awake. He's looking at me. His eyes are... Oh, God, his eyes are gone. It's just jelly." "Sarah, listen to me." I used my command voice, the one I used when clients panicked on a ledge. "Clip into his harness. We will haul him up. Just do it." "It's not rock, Mark," she said, her voice shifting into a strange, detached monotone. "I was wrong. It's not a vent. It's a pore. A skin pore. Sarah!" "It's waking up, Mark. We tickled it." The rope in my hands jerked violently. Not a rhythmic tug, but a massive yank, as if a semi-truck had snagged the line. I was thrown forward, my crampons screeching against the ice. I slammed the brake hand down, the ATC device biting into the rope. Then came the sound. It wasn't over the radio. It blasted out of the hole, a physical wave of noise. It was a scream, but it sounded like 1,000 people screaming in unison, layered over the grinding of tectonic plates. The ice beneath my feet cracked. A spiderweb fracture raced from the hole toward my anchors. "Mark!" Sarah screamed over the radio. "Pull! It's got my legs! It's got my—" The radio cut to static. I hauled with everything I had, but the rope was tight as a piano wire. It wasn't moving. I looked at the hole.
The smooth, polished rim was contracting. The hole was shrinking, like a sphincter closing. The rope began to smoke. Friction? No. Acid. The line was dissolving right where it entered the dark. I had a split second to make the decision that haunts me every time I close my eyes. If I held on, I would be dragged down when the anchors failed. If the ice collapsed, I went with it. I unclipped the belay device. The rope whipped through the anchors and vanished into the closing hole with a crack like a whip. The scream from below stopped instantly. The hole slammed shut. It didn't freeze over. It sealed. The ice knit together like flesh healing in high-speed video. Within seconds, there was no hole, just a smooth, concave depression in the glacier. And then the heat hit me. The ice beneath my boots turned to slush instantly. I fell to my knees, water soaking my pants. The entire glacier face was melting. Steam exploded around me, blinding and scalding. I ran. I don't remember much of the descent. I remember tripping over seracs, sliding down chutes that should have killed me. I remember the sound of the mountain behind me, not a hum anymore, but a roar. The ice was shifting, groaning, rearranging itself to hide the wound we had opened. I reached the tree line by nightfall. I hiked through the dark, hallucinating. I saw David standing behind trees, his hands replaced by gray stone. I saw Sarah lying in the creek, her legs fused into the riverbed. I made it to the ranger station at Paradise the next morning. I told them we got hit by rockfall. I told them Sarah and David were swept into a crevasse. I lied. They launched a recovery mission, but the weather turned. When the clouds finally cleared, they found nothing. No gear, no bodies. The coordinates I gave them led to a flat, undisturbed ice field. The geologists said there was no fumarole activity in that sector. They stopped searching yesterday. But I know what I saw, and I know what I hear. I'm sitting in this motel room, and the TV is off. It's 2 a.m., and I can hear it. It's faint, coming from the floorboards, vibrating up through the legs of the chair. Thump, thump, thump. It knows I got away. It knows I'm here. I looked in the mirror an hour ago. There's a patch of skin on my left palm right where I held the rope before I let it go. It's hard, gray, rough to the touch. I tried to scratch it off, but I couldn't feel it. I took a steak knife and tried to cut it away. There was no blood, just gray, wet stone underneath. And as I cut into my own hand, I didn't feel pain. I felt relief. I felt a pulling sensation, a tug in my gut, calling me back to the ice. The patch is growing. It's up to my wrist now. I'm going to post this, and then I'm going to check out. I'm not going to the hospital. They can't help me. I'm going back to the mountain, not to climb. I think I'm part of it now, and it wants to be whole. If you hike Rainier, stay on the trail. If you see a steam vent that isn't on the map, don't look inside. And if the ground starts to hum, run. Run until your lungs burn, because the mountain is hungry, and it's been asleep for a very long time. It's waking up, and I think we're just the appetizer.
I found a hidden gem ski resort in Slovakia. The trails aren't marked to guide you down, they're marked to keep you out. I'm writing this from a hostel in Poprad. I don't have my passport, I don't have my gear, and I don't have my best friend. The local police, the policia, are treating me like a hysterical tourist who had too much borovichka and lost his buddy in a snowbank. They keep telling me to wait for the thaw. They know. I can see it in their eyes. They know exactly where he is, and they know he's never coming back. If you're a skier, you know the itch. You're always looking for the next big line, the untouched powder, the place where the lift tickets don't cost a mortgage payment and the tourists haven't scraped the runs down to ice by 10 a.m. That's what brought Dave and me to Slovakia. We'd done the Alps, we'd done the Rockies. We wanted something raw. I found the resort on a deep web forum dedicated to dark tourism and extreme sports.
It wasn't advertised on Booking.com or TripAdvisor. It was called Tiche Pleso, the Silent Lake. The coordinates pointed to a valley deep in the high Tatras, wedged between two jagged peaks that looked like the broken teeth of a giant. The website was a single page, text only, black background, white courier font. 2 lifts, no grooming, at your own risk, cash only. It was perfect. We rented a beat-up Skoda at the airport and drove 4 hours into the gray heart of the mountains. The further we drove, the narrower the roads got. The pine trees grew taller, denser, their branches sagging under the weight of snow that looked too heavy, too thick. When we finally arrived, the sun was already dipping behind the peaks, casting the valley in a bruised purple twilight. The resort was barely that. It was a single, brutalist concrete hotel that looked like a leftover Soviet sanitarium, and 2 ancient, rusted chairlifts that disappeared into a cloud layer halfway up the mountain. There were no other cars in the lot, just a black van with tinted windows and snow piled on the roof. Atmospheric, Dave joked, pulling his bag out of the trunk. As long as the snow is good, I don't care if Stalin himself checks us in, I said. We walked into the lobby. It smelled of cabbage, old cigarettes, and damp wool. The receptionist was a woman who looked like she was carved out of granite. She didn't smile. She took our cash, handed us 2 heavy iron keys, and pointed to a map tacked to the wall. "Green line's safe," she said. Her English was thick, clunky. "Red line's difficult." She tapped a large area of the map shaded in black hash marks. "Here, no go." "Avalanche risk?" I asked. She looked at me, her eyes pale blue and utterly flat. "No, just no go. You go, we do not look for you." "Got it," Dave said, winking at me. "Out of bounds." We went to our room, drank a few beers, and waxed our boards. The silence in the valley was heavy. Usually at a ski resort, you hear the hum of snowcats grooming the trails at night, the distant sound of partying, the wind. Here, nothing. It was like the air itself was frozen solid. The next morning, the uneasiness vanished. The skiing was god-tier. The lift was slow and creaked ominously, but once we got off the summit, it didn't matter. We were above the clouds. The peaks of the Tatras pierced the sky like islands in a sea of white, and the snow, it was waist-deep, dry, champagne powder. Around 1 p.m., we stopped for a break near the edge of the resort's boundary. We were sitting on a ridge, eating flattened sandwiches. "Look at that," Dave said, pointing with a gloved hand. Below us, dipping into a bowl that was definitely in the black hash area of the map, was a pristine chute. It was a straight shot through an old-growth forest, widening out into a massive, pillowy field of white. "That's the forbidden zone," I said. "That's the best run on the mountain," Dave countered. "Look at it, Mark. It's untouched. We drop in, shred the bowl, and it looks like it funnels right back down to the access road." I hesitated. The lady said they wouldn't look for us. "We have beacons, we have shovels, we aren't idiots," Dave said, standing up and clicking into his bindings. "Come on, 1 run, then we stick to the groomers." I'm a skier. I'm addicted to the glide. Looking at that untouched powder was like staring at a pile of gold. "Fine, fine," I said. "Drop in." We ducked the orange rope.
The moment we crossed the boundary, the sound changed. It's hard to explain. You know how snow muffles sound? This was different. It was like the sound was sucked out of the air. The swish-swish of my skis sounded distant, like it was happening to someone else. The wind died instantly. "Weird acoustics," I muttered, but Dave was already 30 yards ahead, throwing a massive spray of snow as he carved a turn. We descended into the tree line. The trees here were massive, ancient pines with twisted black bark. They grew close together, forcing us to make tight, technical turns. I was focusing on my line, dodging tree wells, when I saw the first marker. It wasn't a trail marker. It was a pole stuck into the snow, about 7 feet high. Tied to the top was a bundle of twigs and Bone. It looked like the jawbone of a deer tied with red yarn. I slowed down. Dave! He stopped a bit further down, looking back. What? Did you see that? The Blair Witch stick? Yeah, probably some local folklore thing. Keeps the tourists away. Keep moving, my legs are burning. He pushed off again. I followed, but the joy was gone. The deeper we went, the darker it got. The trees seemed to lean in, blotting out the sun. I started seeing more markers, not just poles now. There were things hanging from the branches. Old rusted ski poles bent into circles. Gloves, hundreds of them, nailed to the trunks of the trees. And helmets, cracked, faded helmets swinging in the stagnant air. Dave, stop, I yelled, skidding to a halt. Dave stopped, but he didn't look back at me. He was staring at something ahead of him. Mark, he said. His voice was trembling. What is that? I skied down to him. We were at the edge of a small clearing in the woods. In the center of the clearing stood a figure. It was wearing a ski suit, a retro one from the 80s, neon pink and teal. It was standing perfectly still, facing away from us. Hey, you okay? Dave called out. The figure didn't move. We inched closer. The snow around the figure was undisturbed, completely smooth. That was impossible. There were no tracks leading to it. I got close enough to reach out. Hey, buddy, are you? I grabbed the shoulder of the jacket. It was hard, not stiff with cold, hard. I walked around to the front. I screamed, falling backward into the snow. It was a man, but he wasn't flesh and blood anymore. He was calcified. His skin was a grayish white, hard as stone, but the detail was perfect. The stubble on his chin, the terror in his wide, unblinking eyes, the scream frozen on his lips. He wasn't a sculpture. He was a man who had turned into something else. Then we heard the whistle. It came from everywhere and nowhere. Wee-hoo! Wee! 3 sharp notes. A pause. 3 sharp notes. The statue vibrated. A low hum emanated from his chest. We need to go, I said, my voice cracking. Now, downhill, fast. What is that? Dee was spinning around, looking into the dense trees. Don't look for it, just go. I pointed my skis downhill and tucked. We tore through the trees. The whistling got louder, joined by a sound like heavy footsteps breaking through crusty snow. Crunch, crunch, crunch. They were flanking us. Faster, I yelled back at Dave. He was right on my tail. We burst out of the trees into the open bowl we had seen from the ridge. It wasn't empty. My blood ran cold. The field was full of them, hundreds of them, hundreds of figures in ski gear, some from the 90s, some modern, some looking like they were from the 1920s in wool coats, all of them standing perfectly still, all of them turned to face us. It was a garden of statues, a graveyard of skiers who had gone out of bounds. Oh my God, Dave sobbed. Oh my God, Mark! We had to ski through them. There was no other way down. Don't stop, I commanded, though I was terrified I would crash. Do not stop. Do not touch them. I weaved through the frozen crowd. I saw faces of children. I saw a woman clutching an infant icy. I saw a man with his arm raised as if to ward off a blow. They were all gray. They all hummed at low, sickening frequency. Wee-hoo! Wee! The whistling was deafening now. It was coming from the statues themselves. They were a choir.
I was halfway across the field when the fog hit. It didn't roll in. It dropped like a curtain. 1 second I could see the bottom of the valley. The next I couldn't see the tips of my skis. The whiteout was absolute. Dave! I screamed. I'm here! I'm right behind you! Keep talking! Keep making noise! I can't see anything! Mark, I hit one! I hit one of them! I heard a crash, then the sound of skis clattering together. Dave! I tried to stop, to hockey stop and turn uphill, but the slope was steep and I slid 10 feet. Dave! It grabbed me! The terror in his voice was raw, primal. It fell on me, but it's soft now. It's moving. Mark, it's... His voice cut off with a wet, gurgling snap. In silence, the whistling stopped. Dave? I stood there in the white void, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Dave, answer me!
I heard a sound. Shk, shk. The sound of skis on snow. Someone was skiing toward me. Slow, methodical. A figure materialized out of the fog. It was Dave. He was standing there, staring down at me, but he wasn't wearing his goggles. His eyes were wide open. "Dave, Jesus Christ, let's go," I said, relief washing over me. He didn't move. Then I saw it. His skin. It was turning gray, starting at his neck and creeping up his jawline like frost on a window pane. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out, just the whistle. Whee, whoo, whee. And then, from the fog behind him, a hand reached out and rested on his shoulder. It was a long hand, too long. The fingers had too many joints. The owner of the hand stepped forward. It stood at least 8 feet tall. It was draped in rags that looked like shredded ski patrol uniforms. His face, it didn't have a face, just a smooth white surface with a single vertical slit where a mouth should be. The slit opened, revealing rows of needle-like transparent teeth. It whistled. Dave's head snapped toward me. His eyes were fully gray now. He raised his pole, pointing it at me. I didn't wait. I dropped into a tuck and straight-lined it. I skied blind. I skied into the white nothingness, praying I wouldn't hit a tree. I could hear them behind me, not skiing, running, a heavy, loping gait that shook the ground. I hit a compression and launched into the air. For a second I was flying. Then I slammed into the ground. My bindings exploded, and I tumbled until I slammed into something hard. Metal. I was at the bottom. I'd hit the metal pylon of the main chairlift. I scrambled to my feet and ran toward the hotel. I burst through the lobby door, screaming for help. The receptionist was there. She didn't look up from her ledger. "My friend!" I screamed. "My friend is up there! Something took him! There are people frozen in the snow!" She slowly raised her eyes. There was no surprise. "You went past the red line," she said simply. "Call the police! Call mountain rescue!" "No rescue there," she said. "Only Bile Ticho, the white silence." She stood up and walked around the desk. "You leave now, before the sun goes down fully. If you stay, the whistle comes here. Your friend is part of the collection now. He is preserving. If you go back, you join him. Go." I drove down that mountain road like a maniac. I didn't stop until I hit Pop Ride. Update. I've been at the police station for 2 days. They went up to the resort. They say there's no one there. Not just no Dave. No one. The hotel is boarded up. They say it's been abandoned since the 90s. They say I'm hallucinating. But I have my GoPro. I haven't shown them the footage. I was afraid they'd destroy it. I just watched it on my laptop in the hostel bunk. The footage of the run is there, but when we enter the clearing, when we see the first statue, the camera glitches, the video distorts, tearing into static, but the audio remains. You can hear the whistling. And then, right at the end, right before I crash into the lift tower, the camera spins around, facing uphill for a split second. The frame is blurry, but I paused it. There are 3 figures standing on the ridge above me. One is the tall thing with the slit face. One is the first statue we saw, the guy in the pink suit. And the third is wearing a blue North Face jacket, Dave's jacket. Dave is standing there, but his arms are too long. His legs are stretched, elongated, as if his bones had been pulled like taffy. He's tall now, almost as tall as the thing next to him. And he's waving. I'm leaving Slovakia tonight. If you ever see a link for Tiche Place, just keep scrolling. Some trails aren't meant to be skied. They're meant to be fed.
Would you have opened that door? Tell me your choice in the comments below.
There are more stories waiting for you. Click here to continue the descent. This is Desailer. Don't look behind you.